So the first question I have, Michael, is you've spent a tremendous amount of time studying Israel and writing about Israel and the wider Middle East. How do you see developments emerging in the Gaza Strip right now? We hear that Steve Witkoff, Trump's emissary, is headed back to the Middle East. There's an envisioned three-stage process in this agreement with Hamas. How do you see it evolving right now?
Okay, bottom line up front, I don't think it's going to work. And the main reason I don't think it's going to work is the problem Hamas has with Israel isn't rooted in some material grievance. It's not as if there can be a magic formula to resolve this conflict. Fundamentally, it's ideological. And if you go to the archives, there were, the U.S. intelligence community had identified Islamist terrorism as a threat to the United States in 1946, which was a year before the partition of Palestine, 2 years before the creation of the State of Israel. So let's just accept there's something else going on here. But the other reason I don't think some of the dealing moving forward with regard to the Trump administration's plan is going to work is by relocating Palestinians out of Gaza, specifically into Jordan and Egypt. You're not actually going to bring calm. You're actually going to spread a contagion of radicalism to two regimes which are already struggling with their backs to the wall.
Let's talk specifically about Jordan, which already has a large Palestinian population inside its borders. Why do you think Trump almost seems to be willfully ignoring the danger that this would pose to the stability of the kingdom in Jordan?
Well, look, I'm not a Trump whisperer, so I really don't understand how he's thinking and how he's approaching this, other than simply to try to upend conventional wisdom in order to hope that some more creative solution can come into play. But the key thing everyone in the audience needs to understand about Jordan is that King Abdullah II of Jordan is in some ways like Mikhail Gorbachev was in the Soviet Union. He was much more popular outside of his country than inside of his country. One example I always love to give when I teach is if you Google King Abdullah II and Star Trek, you're going to find pictures on Google Images of King Abdullah when he actually was an extra on one of the Star Trek franchises, whether it was Voyager or Enterprise, I don't know, because he's a notorious Trekkie. Now, that might seem endearing to the audience in the West, but remember, if you're an Islamist, then only God can know the future, and science fiction is completely haram. It's forbidden, and therefore the king has committed original sin. This is why, for example, in Iraq, if we go to Zarqawi, who was the master terrorist who afflicted our forces in the first decade of the Iraq conflict, you see that a lot of these guys like Zarqawi actually came from Jordan. So we do have a real sort of source of instability in Jordan. But if I could actually go back for a second, Jacob.
Sure.
The other overlying issue that we all need to be aware of, and that we can't simply navel gaze from a Washington perspective, is that transition is looming in the Middle East. And a lot of what we've been seeing with Hamas, with Jordan, to some extent with Egypt, have all been the machinations of powers trying to prepare for a new Palestinian leadership. Mahmoud Abbas, the chairman of the Palestinian Authority, is 89 years old. He's in the 20th year of his 4-year presidential term. He's a chain smoker. And the biggest difference between him and Yasser Arafat before him is Yasser Arafat had appointed a successor. No one knows what's going to come after Mahmoud Abbas's death. And so even when we go back to October 7th, it's easy in the U.S. context or the Israeli context to look at this in terms of the Israel-Palestinian conflict. After all, it happened on the 50th anniversary of the 1973 Yom Kippur War. It happened on a Jewish holiday. But what I think was just as important was it was Hamas's effort to try to assert itself up for the looming succession. And the big danger coming forward, and this just ties up the question, is that Hamas is making a play for the West Bank and even for Jordan itself. That, to me, is the greatest danger out there right now.